Thank you so much for joining me for another sketchbook video. It's my second video, but it's my 5th sketchbook that I started and or finished last year. I did all of these drawings in 2024. This is a Stilman and Birn Zeta series sketchbook. Now, if you've seen my DIY sketchbook video, you'll know I wasn't a huge fan of this paper. However, I did kind of learn to work with it eventually, found some materials that worked better than others, so I'll talk about that as I flip through the pages. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you at the end. So I began naming my sketchbooks at the start of last year when I got back into sketchbooking, and I'm just hoping that that helps me keep track along the way. They're not all in order because I have some sketchbooks that are less commonly used, ones that might have better paper or different paper, my tan coloured sketchbook for instance. So this is number 5, but it's only the 3rd one I have completed so far. This sticker is by Edith Rewa and it came with a wrapping paper pack of hers. I love her botanical illustrations. This first spread is right at the start of the book. It's using primarily Tombow and Ecoline Markers, and it was just capturing a few of the moments on a country trip to Tamworth I took with my dad to see some extended family. During that trip, we attended a show that one of my uncles was helping with the sound design for, and I did a couple of little sketches of the performers and the participants. Here I was testing out my Derwent drawing pencils that I had just gotten, as well as some mechanical pencil lead. This was a page where I wanted to try out a few different mediums and just see how they worked on this paper. It's a very scrappy page, nothing to write home about. I was just testing how markers worked on it, how paint worked on it, how pencils would go over the top, and it was just a bit of an experiment. Here's a page very similar to something you would have seen in my last sketchbook, where I have pre-blobbed the page a la Sophie McPike with some watercolour, and then I was hosting life drawing class, so I wrote out my schedule for what I thought I was going to do in terms of poses. Now, I always do less good work when I'm hosting because I'm trying to keep track of a few different things, trying to make sure I've got the timer right, trying to talk to people who are in the class, so these are not my best work, and I was using this pen, which I haven't used for figure drawing before. So these are 1-minute poses, so are those. This was a really tricky pose for a 1-minute pose, and then we have a 3-minute pose and 2 more 3-minute poses. Now, in terms of pre-blobbinating, this was scrap paint from this page, and I didn't really think about the fact that the acrylic would probably stick to the other page. So this page did stick to this page. So there's kind of remnants of this page on this page. Anyway, when I did the 3-minute drawings over the top, I didn't worry about it. I just did them anyway. And then later when I went home, and this was all like a different, because it's ripped the top half of the paper off, I just kind of colored that in differently. But here on this page, I was playing with the Gansai Tambi paints, so the Japanese watercolors. I had seen a little fig bird in the tree that morning, so I wanted to do a little drawing of him, and this was from a reference on Instagram, so this was just for practice. I really feel like this photographer uses a lot of the colors, or the landscapes have a lot of the same colors that the Gansai Tambi paints have, so they were really good for me to practice these kinds of landscapes with those paints. I really like this spread. I think this one is possibly a reference by the same artist, like loosely adapted. This is a building in Morpeth, near where I live. I used to live actually in Morpeth, the town, and I think it's a real estate agent now, but it's an old building. And here's a little mushroom photo that I took on my walk, literally side of the road in the middle of the city. I found this tiny little mushroom and a pigeon. And these were all exploring those same paints and just trying to see how they worked, how, again, trying to get used to this paper and how it works. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this spread came out. Also, this kind of like box idea, I think I got from Katie Moody. I think she was doing a lot of this in the videos I was watching at the time I was doing this. So here I had swatched out all of the paints, and I just thought I'd play with the blobs and do some little faces. Some of these I actually really like. None of these are from reference, they're all from just what the blob was giving me. And so they're completely imaginary people. For that purpose, given that I've not done drawing from imagination for a very long time, I'm actually really happy with how some of these faces turned out. So this spread is a mixture. This one I had done, again, I think it's a reference from the same photographer whose color palettes in their photos just really match those paints. So I did this one initially, and then the whole rest of the spread was blank until the last two paintings I did in the sketchbook, which this is a reference from that same trip to Tamworth on the first spread. And this is actually a reference from a photo that my mum took when she was living near Lake George in Canberra. And this is just like the shadows across the nearly empty lake. Just picking photos where those colors are really able to shine. Okay, so this was from Inktober. I kind of made a commitment to try and just use ink for Inktober since it's my first ever Inktober. I was using prompts from Xoonani on YouTube. I'll link her in the description. She had a fun prompt list that I think I've got here. Yeah, this prompt list here. It was very out of what I've been doing lately. Very much maybe stuff I might have drawn when I was a teenager or when I was going through a witchy phase when I was much younger. So it was kind of fun to explore. I used a mixture of markers, Inktense pencils, fine liners. Basically my only rule was it should have some form of ink as part of it. So this was marker with some kind of fine liner over the top, but using water to disturb the marker to use it almost like watercolor. And then yeah, these I really like how the raven turned out. The skull's a bit wonky. There's no pre-sketching for any of these. So then we've got Toad, and he ended up on a psychedelic background, which I think is kind of fun. And Cat Eye, again, these were mostly Inktense, a little bit of marker and stuff. And then for Insect, there's an Instagram Jungle Diamonds, and there's all these super cool moths that I've never heard of before. And so I decided to do a couple of those. Not super successful, this one with the ink. It's not the best medium to try and do something like that, but it fit the prompt. So this one's really interesting. It reminds me of a drawing I did when I was young of a heart stabbed into a door. It was based on a short story about Harley Quinn. Anyway, when I thought about combining some of these prompts so I wouldn't have to do so many drawings, this kind of just came to life. I really love how the Inktense pencils in the background have formed this really lovely sort of tie-dye effect. And I'm pretty happy, given it's with ink, I'm pretty happy with how this heart has come out. Because I'm not used to working with ink. It's not usually a very forgiving medium. So yeah, and I was somewhat pleasantly surprised at how it worked on this paper too. So that's quite an intense image, and it's not something I would probably do these days without the kind of prompt. Okay, so this was for Tree and Book. And this is from a reference. I'll pop it up on the screen so you can see what I mean. There's a giant tree in my local park, and one day I was walking the dogs and there was a guy sitting in this little nook of the tree reading, and I thought that this would have been really fun to do again for those. I'd been wanting to draw it for ages, but it really fit with the prompts. So that's all with Inktense pencils. Also colors I wouldn't normally use, but I only have 12 of the Inktense pencils. I got them in a set, and they're always colors that are pretty loud and gregarious. So yeah, it probably a bit out of my comfort zone in terms of colors. So for Sun and Crown, I had taken up a belly dancing class, which I've never done belly dancing before, and the teacher was talking a little bit about Egyptian style belly dance and mentioning the sun god, mentioning his wife Isis, and it kind of inspired me, and I knew those two were in the prompt list, so I decided to go in for that. Again, I don't know that it's my most successful drawing, but fun idea for that prompt anyway. Again, Inktense. There's some other stuff in there, gold and different things, but mainly Inktense pencils. Here I was just testing out some Art Spectrum gouache that I got and just seeing how different things layered over the top. So this is fun. I saw I'll include the reference for this too. I saw a jacaranda tree that was entwined with jasmine right at the start of spring, and that prompted me to try and do this for plant flower and mandrake. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I broke my rule and I did not use ink. I used gouache. But I was inspired by the prompt and I was inspired by the picture, and I didn't feel like I could do it in ink, so I did it in gouache. Again, very out of the box for me at the moment. This is not something that I would probably normally draw. Then for mushroom, this is really mixed media. I did the backgrounds in ink, and then I did the little mushrooms mostly in gouache. So it is mixed media and it does have ink, so tick the box for that. But these are all mushrooms that I found on one walk in a park with my dogs. Mushrooms are so cool. Okay, so I was really inspired by a couple of different artists who I've seen a more naive style. Katie Moody does some of these kinds of birds, April from Monkey Mintaka, and I was just inspired to do this page of, we call them noisy miners in Australia. These are a really common, slightly annoying, hence the name noisy, bird, but they are a native, and I really like this page. I think it kind of gives you the vibe of the noisy miners, where they're always really angry, they're very alert, heavy birds, they love to swoop, and yeah, they're kind of little attitude guys. So this is a really interesting one. This prompt list really led me down the garden path in terms of something completely different. So I was sort of stuck with words like womb, root, to an extent element. There were a few different sort of prompts that I had left here. I had also just been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I was also thinking about how connected we are with like epigenetics. It's a very, there's a lot of thoughts behind this drawing, and I was thinking about how deeply connected we are to not just our mother's wombs, but our grandmother's wombs. Just the fact that when our, mum is in the womb of our grandma, she already has the egg that will become us. I was just thinking about that whole connection, and it produced this. This pose is based on a life drawing pose we had a pregnant model a couple months ago, and so I used my previous drawing as a reference. It had a lot of meaning to me at the time, even though the drawing and the execution's probably not great. The light has changed and it's gotten darker with a cloud, so apologies if the light is a bit different. At this time I was really inspired by the jacarandas. They were flowering all over town, and if you've never seen a jacaranda tree in the spring, it's heaving with bright purple blossoms, and there are no leaves on the tree. The whole tree is just purple. They're really incredible, and because they're so big, if you look at a landscape, you can just see this sort of like bunches of bright purple around the neighborhood, and they're a commonly planted neighborhood tree. So this is the local park near me, and this is one of the jacarandas. This was done with the Gansai Tambi, but I did put Neo color over the top for the blossoms, just to give them that pop of really bright purple color. There is a little bit of colored pencil in here too. This one, again, playing with the same paint palette, trying to see what I can do with it. This is Joby Hall on Instagram, again, just for practice, using those photographic references. So here's another one that's a little out of order. I did these two sketches long before I did this final sketch, so this date is for this sketch. And they were just pencil sketches, and I had just done these two and then moved on. And then I came back obviously in December and just did a final pencil sketch here. And then I thought they just looked a bit washed out because they're quite light sketches. And so I came in and I put some backgrounds around them. I quite like these sketches. These two are from Earth's World on Instagram, and I think this one's from Pinterest. Don't quote me on that. And I used a polychromos colored pencil, just straight in with colored pencil. And then I did a little bit of coloring with some of the colored lead mechanical pencils I have in different colors. So this is after I just got my very first gouache box from Sarah Burns with Craft Armo, and this was the color study that she has us do. And I realized that gouache really wasn't a great medium to use in this paper. Not only does it not really take watery medium very well, you can see from the finished version, despite the fact that these were done with the same gouache tubes, the color difference is wild. Like, the colors are so different. You get so much more vibrant colors on the cotton paper. So that was a real learning point, is that if I'm doing sketches in this with gouache, the color is definitely going to be much more toned down, much more muted. So this was another play around with the Gansai Tambi paints. Again, Joby Hall, so that was the same as the last one. Again, just photographers that use the same color palette so that I can get used to making landscapes with those paints. I really loved the color of these rocks in that image compared to the green and the icy blue of the water. So I really like this spread. It's mixed media. It goes back to the same topic I was talking about earlier with the jacaranda trees. And I had this image in my head for probably a month before I actually managed to do this piece. It's sort of based on some of the urban landscapes that I've seen April do from Monkey Mintaka. This sort of very simplified houses and sort of rising up a hill and trying to get not too precious about exactitude in the layout of the landscape, except obviously using houses that are quite Australian, quite similar to houses that are around the area that I drive around in, the neighborhood I was thinking of, and just trying to get that feel of what it's like to drive around and see these beautiful bursts of jacaranda trees. This is actually a mix of the Gansai Tambi paints, Derwent drawing pencils, and a little bit of white gouache mixed in with actually some watercolor to get this color in the trees. I'm kind of happy with how it came out in the end, especially because it took me so long to start. So here are some little sketches. These are sort of inspired by Koosje Koene on YouTube, and just because her daily drawing challenge that she kind of puts out there, and using pen to just get some continuous lines, some wobbly lines, just trying to loosen up and do a drawing just because. I really like the style of her sort of loose pen drawings. This is my dog. It looks a lot grumpier than my dog usually looks. Her name is Fig. So here again, and these are the watercolors I reviewed in my last video too, the Kusakabe super granulating colors. I really love them for this pre-blobbinating of the page. I love how they mix. These three colors in particular, I love how they work together. I think there's Sunrise Bloom, Purple Spindle, and Ocean Blue. So this, again, inspired by Koosje Koene, is just my feet drawn over the top. I already had this page. I had nothing necessarily to do with it, and I sat down at lunchtime and just drew my feet. And here are some quick gesture drawings, figure studies. I got some reference packs from Proco so I could continue to practice gesture drawing and figure drawing at home. and I've been watching a few of the videos by Mitesi about force drawing for gestures, so I'm kind of intrigued by that, and I've been doing a lot more figure practice at home. Unicorns! These were straight in with pen, no sketching, somewhat based on an old book I have, which has photographs of unicorns. I don't know how they put the horns on their head. It's a very old book, so who knows? I hope it wasn't any cruelty, is all I'm saying. And I don't know how, I mean, this is pre-Photoshop. Anyway, or they're real unicorns. We can just pretend they're real unicorns, right? Anyway, so I used to draw horses all of the time, less recently. But yeah, it was just, again, a way to get some sketches done at night. So I really like this. This is based on a photograph that my mum took on Lake George, similar to one earlier in the book. This is with Neo colors, and I really actually like it a lot. I like a lot of the textures I got. This bit could be better, but I'm gonna hold it up because it's actually one of my favorites in the sketchbook. So I hope you can see like the different textures. So it's Neo colors with a bit of water. Yeah, so I really, really like that sketch. I thought that went so well, I'll do another, and it was not good at all. This did not work even a little bit. So I was like, well, it's a good thing I have to put paper between, because I probably don't need to see that sketch and we can just focus on this one. Even though it's mainly just to stop them smudging together. And we've come to the end. So this is the second box I got from Sarah Burns and Craft Armo's gouache boxes. I'm really enjoying learning more about gouache and gouache techniques from those boxes. And again, it highlights the difference between using the same colors on this paper versus on 100% cotton paper. So this is my final drawing for that, and you can really see just how different the colors are. They're almost glowing on this paper, whereas here everything looks super flat. Great for practice, and I think I got the hang of using gouache on this paper better, but it's no comparison. Like, ultimately using cotton paper is definitely going to be the way to go. And then I was just doing some practice with the number 4 rigger brush and just trying out some different grass textures there. And that's the end of this sketchbook. Thanks everyone so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this little sketchbook tour. I look forward to sharing more of my art with you through 2025 in a variety of different sketchbooks with a variety of different mediums. So I hope you'll join me. Like, subscribe if you'd like to see that content, and I hope to chat with you down in the comments.